get back into the second split. They are in Shanghai, and there's some great spots to visit, you know, around the tourist areas. I actually just forgot, we haven't gotten a chance to really cover those, but maybe, you know, depending on how this next game goes, we'll inform everyone else at home after the game what they can check out. But the first round opens up with a few bans, nothing too surprising, but the first pick is Junhao. And when we think about champions that want to go forward and want to go in, that matches the statement here that Heng wants to put on for Game 4.
Yeah, this is exactly what we were asking for from Heng. Another champion that he can really be proactive with, try to get his laners ahead, play this one out in a way that unfortunately he just wasn't quite able to on the Wukong previously. The insta-lock right here though for Junhao is going to be this Lee Sin. Potentially looking towards picking up the Elise. That means that you win out in your 2v2 in the bot lane more often than not, but it is also kind of risky because if you fall behind on this champion, it gives you a lot less utility than the majority of the other supports do. Instead, going to pivot over towards the Ashe, another one of those priority pickups that we've seen a lot of teams really like to grab early.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to not show your support pick too early on, as support counter pick is so pivotal in determining the state of a matchup for a 2v2 if there are no lane swaps available or you don't opt into it. The Ashe also, as you said, is great utility to have, and I love the fact that you always have non-committal engage with the Ashe arrow. You just fish for it. If it lands and you get something out of it, cool. If not, well, no harm, no foul if you choose not to commit on it. OMG, their response though, they're immediately going to the Jinx, and because there's not as many champions within the pool of, you know, minus 30 champions that are now available, it's a lot safer to pilot something that wants to be a reset carry like Jinx.
Absolutely, and you can pair it up alongside the Braum. I think the Braum also a good takeaway. Don't give it over to RosieLove. I think that would have been a great pairing alongside the Ashe. Works well with the Lee Sin as well. Instead, you get to pair it up alongside your Jinx and give you a little bit of extra protection, stop those Ashe arrows from being such a threat, but after a little bit of extra consideration, it is going to be the Elise locked in. Elise support this is going to be, and we've seen just how strong that can be. Paired up with an Ashe, that is a bot lane that is miserable to try to play into. You step a little bit too far up and you get caught by a slow from either the Ashe or the Elise, and you are not getting away. You have to play this one so very carefully as Starry and Moham.
Solo lanes have yet to be locked in for either team. Hery and Linfeng still awaiting for what will round out the composition here for OMG. Anytime I see a Jinx on my team, I want some strong source of burst damage so you can guarantee at least that very first reset, because once the Jinx gets going, it's not that hard for the Jinx to start ripping through the remaining members, but you always need something to get that catalyst started. And, you know, in terms of mages available, since I imagine that is the type of champion that Linfeng will want to get, Orianna has yet to be picked so far in this draft. You know, Xin Zhao is not traditionally the most known shockwave carrier, but you go in, you dash, you have a point and click dash, not the most long range, but if you land a W and then, you know, go in, that could be a way to get things started. And I think Ultra Prime very well aware of, like, hey, they want a strong control mage with some burst damage, let's get rid of that Victor.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a little bit careful to not accidentally do the anti-synergy of hitting that Crescent Guard to push everybody away as you're all of a sudden attempting to pull them in with the Shockwave. But if you do hit that correctly, you can also do some really fun moments where you pull everybody in with a Shockwave and then bash them all back out again, grab whoever's closest to you. It does work out well. In terms of other things that you can try to look towards in the mid lane, we really are running out of quite a lot of the casters. There's always a possibility that you go for something like the Akali, just use it to blow up the Ashe as quickly as possible, and then move on with the rest of the team fight. Use that as the initial kill that gets the Jinx excited. Then you can play the rest of this one out. Syndra also available. That has been sitting on the edge of pro play for a little while at this point. Camille going to be the lock-in right here for Ultra Prime. It's a very Jiang type champion. We haven't really seen him playing these super aggressive picks so much this game in the top lane. And if it is going to be into the Scion, you're not really expecting too many solo kills. That being said, he can still use that one very effectively.
With something like the Camille, I mean, it just puts a heavier focus and emphasis on Ultra Prime being a single target pick identity composition. One person is going to have a very bad day on the side of OMG, and the fact that Camille gives you guaranteed access to set that up, you know, depending if the frontliners are stepping in front of Cocoon and Ash Arrow, that might be hard to follow up, but at least the Camille guarantees that the Jinx is not going anywhere. Now, OMG rounded out their composition, solid frontline pick with this Scion, and of course, as we suspected, the Shockwave carrier themselves, Linfeng, will be piloting the Orianna, and because Ultra Prime managed to save their counter pick for the mid lane, Saber's choice into this Orianna is going to be the Syndra.
Yeah, and I was wondering if we were going to get to see a Syndra in this game. Potentially could have been over onto OMG. I think that the Orianna fits their composition a lot better, though. And so we are going to get the Syndra on Ultra Prime. That pairs up really well, actually, with the Ashe, because both of these champions can actually buy quite a lot of space for themselves. Yes, they're squishy and immobile, but with the Scatter the Weak and with all the slows that you can put down with an Ashe, it does help you with not having to rely so heavily on the rest of your team to buy you the space. Very important when you're in a game with a Camille, Elise Sin, and an Elise, all champions who can help you out, but aren't really looking to just be sitting there bodyguarding for the carries.
Well, match point for Ultra Prime. They could close things out here. They have the makings of a powerful pick single target composition, but if my only concern here for the side of Ultra Prime is that with RosieLove on something like an Elise and not any of the tank frontliners that we have seen in the prior, 3 games, it does put RosieLove in a very precarious position where if they fall behind, I mean, this Elise is just a glorified stun bot and, nothing else to offer for the side of Ultra Prime.
No, the Elise, I think, is one of the most be or bust champions we've seen in a while. You'd better get it working early on, otherwise, oh boy, does it look bad. But when it does work out, when you can use it effectively, especially alongside something like the Ashe, this is the sort of bot lane that rivals in terms of annoyance things like the Caitlyn Lux lane, where you're just getting poked out constantly. You're always under threat. If you step up just a little bit too far, you can be killed, you can be turned upon almost immediately. It's very different from what OMG are looking to do with this composition, right? This composition wants to get into the team fights, wants to front to back, get the Jinx that first kill, and play from there. It very much is on Ultra Prime right now to be the proactive team, something they've actually been pretty good at so far in this series.
And Ultra Prime have a pretty interesting defensive formation, suspecting that there is going to be some sort of level 1 stacked invade from OMG, considering they have the power of the Braum passive available to them at this point in the early game. But they dissuade it, and they deny giving OMG any cheese kills or any summoner spells burned. They did have to give up some ground so that some wards were dropped into the bottom side jungle, but at the very least, Ultra Prime still in a very safe spot, and because RosieLove is starting to run through the jungle with sweepers, they're actually going to find out, my mistake, OMG didn't actually drop wards, but they're going to go for a delayed invade now, and Junhao is forced to start on the Wolves, and if Heng suspects this, he's going to push them off, and now this is potentially for the makings of a very scrappy level 1, but Junhao gets the smite on the Wolves, and Starry had to flash away from the hook shot. They have to turn on to Wako, might be forced to pop their own flash, gets away from the decimating smash, and OMG, they're burning a lot of summoner spells, but they're getting corralled, and if they don't play this out well, they could get absolutely cheesed. Here they go, hook shot flash on the multiple members by Ultra Prime, and OMG just got completely outplayed. Maybe they trade one back, but they're committing forward onto Linfeng, and it's just complete disaster. Ultra Prime, what an opener to this game 4.
Oh no, that's exactly what OMG didn't want when they're down match point right now. Ultra Prime, they basically have their opponents walk at them and hand kills over on a silver platter. I understand the idea, right? We've got a decent level 1 composition. We've got a Braum and a Scion. That's great. However, the second that you don't get that smash, that smite, sorry. And now Junhao is in a great position to just keep on walking forwards at you. It's so risky. And they're just hoping and praying at this point that they can get away. They can't. They're just going to get jumped by everybody. I love that from Jiang. Just goes straight in, manages to bop everybody back. And that puts the team in such a brilliant position to start with. You get 1 kill onto your top laner, 2 kills onto the jungler. And in terms of lanes you want to get priority on early on, this is perfect.
I think that is the single-handedly the best play Zhang has done this entire split. Obviously, there's a lot of great moments in the past couple of games that Ultra Prime were able to net from this series alone. But, man, when we talk about the fiery confidence and the swagger that Zhang displayed in both of the 1v1s that they have secured for themselves in the side select match, especially the Riven match that we just saw earlier, that hookshot flash, ooh, that was money. And speaking of money, Hery might be in a bad place. Junhao follows the flash with his own to land the Tempest into the crippling strike, and it's just too damn easy for the Ultra Prime top jungle duo.
Yeah, and there's not even any follow-up right here. Hery not going to be able to use that zombie form to any good effect. And the way that this early game has gone makes the rest of this game so very interesting. We were talking about how OMG, they needed to just allow this game to happen a little bit, get some items onto your Jinx. You can be proactive through Heng and try to get into these lanes and get some ganks off, but that's not the way we were exactly talking about. Oh, that's an unfortunate way to have walked right as Heng arrives.
Yeah, Wako doesn't have flash from the level 1, and at first, if you don't succeed as OMG, you persist through and try again, and try to capitalize on any missing summoner spells. And for Ashe, as you said, that is unfortunate way to find out, oh hey, there's a Xin Zhao in our jungle, guys.
Yeah, that's not even really a gank working. The gank was about to happen. Instead, that's just unfortunately, Wako walks up in the worst timing. It happens sometimes. Now back out onto the map is he. And we've had those first couple of resets come through at the moment. Right now, you're in a decent spot over the entire map as Ultra Prime, even with that accidental little bit happening. Before Ultra Prime, they needed to get ahead early. This composition couldn't fall behind, and they've managed to do that. Getting the kill onto the Lee Sin, I think, is specifically interesting, because all of a sudden, ways in which you would perhaps have a lot of pressure on you to try to get something going is already smoothed over. You're already 2 big components up right now, and it means you can step up a lot more confidently into 1v1s up against Heng, a matchup that's often quite tricky to win out on as the Lee Sin.
I remember what we said at the end of game 3, like Ultra Prime seemingly have found the winning formula and the foundation for how these teams should be finding their wins. Give Junhao the lead. Let him choose and decide where they should be playing for on the map, and let RosieLove and Saber be the ones linking up with him and following up on the plays. This is what could happen right now as Junhao baits them in, goes back in with the Sonic Wave and the Resonating Strike combo. And when you have the mobility and the flexibility of the Lee Sin to just push and pull these fights, Ultra Prime are just in such a winning state in the first 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah, they are on top of this one massively, and I really don't think that it's likely they're going to be, you know, put behind too much at this point. You know, they can keep this pressure up. They've got the sort of composition that can just keep themselves ahead. Don't really need to worry too much about conceding map pressure right now to OMG. Indeed, they are going to head straight on over to the Drake, pick that one up, get a Hextech Drake as well. Great as an individual one to be able to grab. You can just keep on stepping up. I like RosieLove here, just harassing, making sure that you have to at least pause a little bit. Not quite going to stop the recall out of Starry, but it is going to delay the recall out of Moham, and that gives Wako a little bit of extra time to be able to sit in this lane and not really have to worry about too much. The lane swap going to be delayed.
Meanwhile, on the top side of the map, Heng trying to see if he can yoink one of these grubs before Junhao walks on over. And Heng definitely has to respect it a little bit. Oh, they were looking for Linfeng. RosieLove with the Cocoon Flash. Barely misses, but here comes the collapse from Zhang. He's level 6. That's the Hexa ultimatum, and Heng is going to have to rely on the rest of his members. Wait a minute, Linfeng with the shockwave over the wall. Buys a lot of time for Heng to survive. And now RosieLove is on the wrong side of the tracks here. OMG, able to really dissuade and just completely outplay this fight around the grub fights. Now, RosieLove will die eventually. because there's no way this Spider's going to get out. But solid win here for OMG.
And is to Starry. Not ideal. Would have liked to have that kill go over to Hery potentially there, but in the end, not going to be the end of the world. Like you said, still another nice overall team fight win. Straight back on over to the Grubs, though, is Heng. Not really going to try to delay things too much. And is going to be able to pick up all 3 right here, actually. So that is going to be a step towards a feat of strength. That is the joys of having your bot lane roamed up towards the top side of the map. It really unlocks these Grubs to you a little bit more. But right now, whenever Ultra Prime are stepping up and trying to make these fights work, they're just using the early lead that they've got for themselves and trying to push that advantage. Exactly what they need to be doing.
Honestly, kind of shocked that OMG were able to really pull themselves out of that sticky situation they found over there. It really seemed like the collapse was there first from Jung. They had the level 6 advantage on the junglers there. Everything was going to place, but maybe just a little too overeager, or just the way that things played out. I think that shockwave really disrupted a lot of time in that fight alone, and just bought enough for Heng to survive. Now Ultra Prime, the next objective that they can look towards is second dragon of the game. 2.5 minutes spawning. They've got RosieLove and Wako on this top side of the map, where Heng was hopefully waiting maybe something here to overextend, but he's got to take the base. He can't stay for too long. He's got to get back on the map, start clearing these camps, and make sure that he's not falling too far behind against Junhao's Lee Sin.
No, you really cannot allow the Lee Sin to get ahead of you massively, because these champions are very similar in what they want to do. Obviously, different paths to really get there, but still, you're going to be trying to dive in, get involved. Oh, Linfeng, if he steps a little bit too far towards the bottom side of this map, there's still a potential for a ward hop. Yep, there it is!
Woohoo! Kick flash! Right into Saber's full combo. He didn't even have to use the unleashed power. It was just the scatter the weak stun. That was gorgeous, Junhao.
That was beautiful between the two of them. Saber knew exactly where to put scatter, and I mean, it's so nice watching that. You can see the play happening and unfolding. The only person who doesn't know that's about to happen is unfortunately Linfeng. You've got to have wards over the back of that chicken pit if you are up against the Lee Sin, otherwise things like that can happen. And this is Junhao in an incredibly strong position right now. Can just keep on making ganks like this happen because he does so much individual damage, and then you're adding on whatever damage a Syndra can do, whatever damage your top lane can do as well. Like you said, this composition has some good non-committal engage as well. They don't have to go flying in with their melee carries, and that means it's even easier for them to really set themselves up for success in these team fights. We've got just under a minute until the next Drake is going to be spawning. Right now, only one picked up for Ultra Prime. It'd be interesting to see if they want to once again move over and try to pick this one up, or if OMG are also going to be like, no, Drakes are our thing in this series, and we're going to keep grabbing all of them.
And technically, Ultra Prime still have, if they're keeping track of Linfeng's flash timer, have one more play before the next set of grubs does spawn that they can try and punish. And anytime that you have a control mage that is overextended, you really want to be making them pay for overextending that much, which is why Linfeng is now paying respect to any threats that Junhao might try and exude onto him anytime he is spotted in the river and hovering around, and just really clinging to the safety of Heng's presence. Now, dragon spawning in the next 4 seconds. Junhao's the only person on that bottom side of the river, so understandably that should be Ultra Primes to grab, and they should, I imagine, have enough time, Bloxer, to maybe play for grubs, but that's why Heng wants the pressure for this tower on the top side.
And RosieLove has been stood on vision for an exceptionally long time. Luckily does actually land the cocoon, otherwise that would have been one dead little spider. Still, they're going to have to step back a little bit. They know they're under massive threat at this point. Might be a couple of turret plates lost too if you're able to push this wave through fast enough. But you were right, more than enough time for Junhao to be able to get back up towards the top side of the map and get involved with this play, potentially try to take some grubs.
And Saber's trying to be careful to not overextend himself into vision. Heng has got to be careful too. He jumps onto RosieLove, the flash backwards. The Glacial Fissure tries to break open the collapse from Junhao, but he should have the damage. But Heng buys enough time with that Crescent Guard. Now surely they should be able to get a trade in, but Hery is teleported in, walks in front of Junhao and slams him into the ground with the non-stoppable onslaught. The flash over the wall trying to follow up on forward. Here comes the resets, and we talked about it before. Starry has the potential to take this game over, and that's a way to do it 12 minutes in.
Oh, you got so low there as Starry, but is able to survive. Heng actually potentially looking to try to go in here. I don't necessarily know that that's going to be a good idea. Just finds Hery in the bush, and that's the swing the OMG needed. Great play for them up in the top side. Excellent teleport, actually, out of Hery. And this Scion, despite the fact that you haven't exactly managed to get a massive lead for yourself, it's still a Scion. Still does a ton of damage on those long charged knockups, and the ulti too. And from this play, oh, Starry blows the cleanse. Potentially didn't even need to. Hadn't seen that on the backside. Was watching Heng just chase down RosieLove. And then I was like, ah, he's dead here, right? Right?
Boom!
Right? Dies eventually, but it's more than enough time for Hery to arrive. Like I said, boom. And that is going to be the kill pick up. That being said, it looks like it's still going to be Ultra Prime able to pick themselves up these grubs. So not the end of the world. It's not the full lead throne, although we may get another skirmish here.
Junhao down a smite. Heng still has available, which is why he's not trying to put any more damage onto the grubs. Scatter the Weak momentarily stuns Heng, and now Junhao trying to reposition for a collapse here. Here comes the teleport. Oh, that was weird. Shockwave just pulls him in, and good night. I don't know what the hell happened to Jung. Junhao going to try to salvage the play. Finds Starry into the back line, but Heng is able to get revenge for it, and now it's all up to Ultra Prime to try and push OMG back into their jungle. That was so bizarre. I'm still hung up about this. I don't know if it was a spectator bug or something, but it looked like Jung was not in the decimating smash, but maybe it was just the teleport particle. I don't know. Unfortunately, Jung got completely smashed, and Saber might have overextended his welcome. No unleashed power. Yeah, just stayed a little too long on that wave, and OMG are there to punish.
This feels like a little bit of a throw right now. Ultra Prime, they were in such a strong position at the start of this game. Now, all of a sudden, Heng is sat at 6-2-1, has got that Sundered Sky available as well, which is one of the strongest things you can possibly have on this champion, and is just unlocked across the map, doing so well for himself. At the same time, Starry also has started joining in with these team fights and getting that first kill, getting excited. Collector available to him as well. Junhao going in a little bit onto Moham, not really going to get too much from that. And now we're just waiting the 30 seconds until the Herald, and less than 5 minutes now until action is going to spawn. We're going to get him in the top side because we have had a lot of action up there.
Yeah. It definitely seemed like after the level 1 fiasco, Jung is fine. It seemed like OMG were... that seemed like a demoralizing way to open up the game, but really credit to them for not letting that tilt them off the face of the map and being able to just recognize, hey, these are our windows where we can collapse. And if it wasn't for that top lane teleport collapse from Hery, I don't think Starry gets all those reset kills. I don't think Heng lives as long as he does, and it's a completely different game where Ultra Prime might have been a little too complacent or resting on the laurels of how well the level 1 fiasco went on in terms of their way, and now we're back to an even game state. In fact, one where OMG are starting to pull ahead now.
Arrow coming in, does manage to tag, not exactly onto the member you're hoping for, and the tower gonna fall anyway. Ultra Prime, they continue to lose more and more. They at least get the Herald on the backside of this fight. But still, with a composition that really needed to get things going early, they were able to do so. But now, OMG, it feels like they're getting closer to their item break points. Still, one item, not exactly the point at which I'm expecting either a Jinx or an Orianna to really pop off. They need a couple more under their belts. But still, you're in a good spot right now. In the previous fight, it's also worth mentioning that there was a long time where Wako was sat hitting opposition and just not really dealing that much damage. He was completely free hitting. Nobody was really putting any pressure onto this Ashe. You get a couple of items, that's a different story. Teleport coming in.
I mean, that was nice from Moham. He pretty much stopped Ultra Prime from being able to collapse and make the play on the Heng. Saves his life. Hery teleports in, forced to flash away as the rest of OMG not really in a position to follow up on the engage as Heng was forced out of the fight. But thankfully for OMG squad, they don't lose their jungler quite yet. Ultra Prime still trying to play ball for this third dragon of the game. And Heng might have enough health to rejoin the fight here. It's still a little tricky for them.
Yeah, they really need to be careful about where the engage they go for is. Hery does still have that unstoppable onslaught available, and if you can hit that onto a couple of key members, that's a great way for them to start this fight out for the minute. Very tense, a lot of low health bars though on OMG, they need to be careful.
You can see that Ultra Prime are being patient. They're taking their time. They're using their poke abilities to try and further diminish the health bars of OMG. Yes, they maintain mid control, but they're not really in danger or threatening this mid-tier 1 turret. So OMG, they're going to have to give ground, and it's enough time where OMG just realize we're not going to get anything off of this push. We're just going to teleport back to the top side of the map, try and threaten the tier 1 turret on the top side, and that is third dragon of the game, going over to Ultra Prime.
Yeah, I think potentially OMG spent a little bit too much time trying to engage, could have been pushing a little bit further topside as well. That being said, maybe they would have drawn a bit more of a response if they'd have done it then. In the end, they managed to trade that Drake for the tower. Really not the end of the world either way, but it is 3 Drakes picked up right here for Ultra Prime. They are now on soul point once again very early on. We're going to get the potential fight for that pre-25 minutes. That's when there's a lot of other big objectives available on the map too. And that could be a really interesting situation. If you delay Atakan long enough, you could end up where you've got Soul available, Atakan up, and Baron. And then what do you do? Where do you go? It makes playing the map state so very tricky. Obviously, we're still a little ways away from that right now. Plenty of League of Legends to play before we get to that point. We'll see if potentially Ultra Prime can find themselves a pick. They've got a great pick comp. We've seen it happen a couple of times, but we haven't really been seeing those enchanted crystal arrows from downtown that we really want to see to set up these fights.
And I wasn't going to comment on this earlier because I thought the collector was going to go into a different crit item, but this is full lethality Jinx. I'm now just realizing with the purchase of the opportunity as well. So I'm not gonna lie, I know I've seen this build pop up in a lot of solo queue games, but I thought it was that's the extent of it. It wasn't necessarily a competitively viable thing. It was just like a haha, you know, Jinx is building full lethality, but you know, this is I'm just excited. I'm not sure how effective this is, you know, and if this is just the most optimal build, I wouldn't know. So I'm here for the ride.
I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit suspicious of this one too. I think it's okay because you do have a Junhao to give you that more consistent damage, and then you can just blow people up. Again, once you get that first kill off, it's pretty nice, and you're also not necessarily into a composition where you're thinking about taking out a tank. In fact, there are no tanks. There's nobody who you need to shred through with an on-hit based build. So if there ever was a competitive game in which to build the full lethality Jinx, it's this one.
You know what? Sounds good enough to me. I'm rocking with it. Ultra Prime, 21 minutes into the game, still down about a couple thousand gold thanks to a little bit of the over-eagerness of playing their hand on that top lane play we saw just what seemed like eons ago. And now OMG are going to try their hand at starting up this Otacon in Fog. Linfeng clears up the top minion wave, gets it pushed in. There's a ward that's propped over the wall. So they have vision at least and know that it is happening. A teleport is coming in for Ultra Prime. Junhao, can he find a miracle steal here? 4,000 HP. They've got vision on it. He's in there. There's the shockwave and knocks him up. Junhao is gone, but here comes the rest of the collapse. Ultra Prime try to find their target on the Starry, but he steps back on up. And here comes the resets. They secured the Otacon, and the GA is going to give them life here to come back to the map. Ultra Prime managed to knock out the Otacon GA and all 5 members, but they lose 2 in the process.
I honestly don't hate that. Obviously, you would rather pick up the Atakan in that situation, but being able to take it off of the majority of your members and pick up that 200 gold onto a few of your key members really isn't the end of the world. It was a tricky fight to try play out. As you go into this team fight replay, watch Junhao. Watch the way that he jumps in and then gets absolutely dogpiled. I mean, bursted down almost immediately, and that makes it a very easy smite secure for Heng at the end of this one. But then from that moment on, you can see, once again, as we were talking about in the previous fight, Saber, Wako, they're getting a lot of time to just sort of sit and hit, not really having too much threat actually put onto them. Obviously, with the Atakan buff, it doesn't really matter, potentially. But if that trend continues for another team fight, now that you actually do have a couple of items completed on these carries, that could change things.
And the big thing for OMG still is just how far ahead Starry is individually in terms of marksman power. Full 2.5 items, whereas Wako yet to have completed his second item. So, and it nets into that 2.5 thousand gold lead you see on the bottom of your screen.
Yeah.
Ultra Prime. If anyone's a prime target, it's got to be Starry. And the benefit for them, Starry just burned both of their summoner spells in this Otacon fight. We'll see if that gets punished.
Yeah, if you aren't able to punish that one, it may well spell disaster right here for Ultra Prime. Everybody's going to fight around mid-wave control. Nobody really cares too much about bot lane control right now. There are also a couple of deep teleport flank wards that could be used for OMG if they want it. That doesn't hit. No.
Clear the way for the Scion train. Ultra Prime. You know, just give ground over to OMG. They get into the river. Maybe that's all that OMG wanted. You know, not the most ideal engage, but they don't really have any other engage tools. Maybe this Glacial Fissure. But we'll see. Oh, no! Wait a minute! That's the shockwave delivery system we were talking about! Try true and simple. Gets the job done. And no Wako means no Ash Arrow that's going to be coming through anytime soon.
There's no way they're going to keep trying to fight this one, right? Surely Ultra Prime just have to turn around and walk away. They're still trying to poke out. They're still trying to deal just about enough damage. No, really, the Junhao's going to be able to get in to steal this one. He might actually be given an opportunity.
I mean, you can see Jung wants the pressure for Starry. He knows that he doesn't have summoner spells. RosieLove is going to dive on in, but they're getting bursted. The kick flash right into Saber isn't enough. Just one more on deck, but it doesn't have enough damage. Starry survives. Just ripping through auto attacks one at a time. Saber just did not have enough cooldowns and enough bursts on the damage that he had available. Oh man, that's just so sad for Ultra Prime, and OMG are rocketing ahead with this lead.
Yeah, the early game was all in favor of Ultra Prime after a disastrous invade level 1. Beyond that though, OMG have been doing a lot to try to make up for the sins of that engage, and this one is gorgeous. Wako, you cannot stand there. Wako cannot be standing right there, and he just gets annihilated, doesn't he? Immediately popped, and that makes the rest of this team fight very easy to play out for OMG. And this is rough, right? You are up game point. If you're able to win this game as Ultra Prime, all of a sudden, look at you. You are 1 and 2. It's not the best scoreline, but you get a win going into the off-season. You have to feel good. And now, this game, which felt so in your grasp, you've gotten a lead with an early game-based composition. All of a sudden, you've fallen behind. You've got a Jinx who's up by 3,000 gold. And it feels like it's going to be almost impossible for Ultra Prime to win this one. If they can't get a big pick, that could be it.
Connects onto Linfeng, and there's the ward hop, and the shockwave hits no one since he was sent flying through the air. And the teleport, this could be sheepish. Thankfully for Hery, he's a big tank, so he's not going to go down that easily. Not enough for Ultra Prime to really capitalize on anyway, but they have the numbers advantage for the next 30 seconds. Can they really get anything done here? Maybe they push in this wave and get this turret down, but I don't think they can really start the Baron.
Well, you've just had to send Starry bot lane to try to catch the wave down there being pushed in by Jiang. There is a possibility to go towards the Baron. I don't think they have a particularly fast Baron take, not fast enough that they can just insta-burst it and not really have to worry about the follow-up. I think if I was Ultra Prime, I would want to go for that Baron. It feels like you're in the sort of situation where you kind of just need to flip it, but at the same time, that was the Enchanted Crystal Arrow engage that we've been asking for, that we really wanted to see for Ultra Prime, to be able to find those picks before the team fights to get themselves a good situation. Linfeng did have the flash available, didn't even use it.
I'm not gonna lie, Bloxer, my mind just flashed back to the fact that Starry lived with 1 HP, literal 1 HP, and now OMG find themselves in a position to just start up and rip this Baron. Ultra Prime, can they even get in and just try and contest, or at least push them off of it so that the Baron resets and they can reevaluate how they look for this engage? Thanks to their wishes, the Baron is pulled off, and OMG returns to the mid lane. Junhao's going for a long flank. You see this?
Oh, it might work. If Junhao gets spotted out here, that feels so bad.
He's a little cautious because Moham started walking back. They knew from the OMG side that something was amiss. But Junhao wasn't necessarily in a compromised spot, but just not seeing people disappear from fog it's enough to just make you cautious. So we're not going to see a creative flank from Junhao this time.
It would have been fun. It was worrying me a little bit in the same way that when Gwen first came out, the first Worlds after Gwen released, we saw a lot of top laners who were used to being on big tanky champions find gorgeous flanks.
Yeah.
But they were on Gwen, and they'd get the flank, they'd get into the backline, and they'd just do nothing. They'd just pop, because that's not Gwen's bread and butter. I was slightly worried Junhao was going to do the same thing, you know, get into the backline and just not quite be able to find the kick onto Starry on the Linfeng that he was particularly looking for. Just get bursted, then you've immediately lost the Baron and quite possibly the game. Obviously, if the play fizzles out, we don't actually get to see the flank pull off at all. And now we've got Drake spawning 50 seconds time. That will be sole available for Ultra Prime. Mountain as well. That would do wonders for their teamfight ability, having that extra shield.
Yeah, and if they can just make sure that OMG don't get set up to do and rip Baron while the dragon is yet to spawn, Ultra Prime are totally content in just sending one member to solo the dragon, keep tabs on the rest of OMG, and then just pivot if necessary and force them back off.
And we'll see if they're going to be able to do that. It's obviously a lot easier to start up a Baron and peel away from it, or a Drake, than it is the Atachan. But that one went down relatively easy earlier on too. No real new big item breakpoints have been hit right now. In a little bit, it is going to be a death cap on Linfeng, and that would be huge. Linfeng having that death cap means that those shockwaves that have already been hitting like a truck will just one tap onto Wako or Saber if you're able to hit it onto them. Now, the Drake is going to be started up by OMG. Ultra Prime, what's the response? Because it can't be nothing.
Yeah.
It might be nothing.
I hate to tell you this, Bloxer, but it might have been nothing. They got a crab. They got a crab. And at least it's a little bit of vision just to continue pushing their vision line further and further into the jungle of OMG. And this control ward... Oh, damn it. That control ward had lasted so long, and it was such a nice point of information for Ultra Prime. Unfortunately, it is now gone. 07 control ward, you will be missed.
It would have been fun as our flank ward, but flanks are a lot less sneaky now as well. That you can see the ball of the person teleporting across your screen.
They're pretty slow too.
Yeah. Has really taken a lot of the wind out of the sails of the awesome flank. This, though, pretty cool.
Hey, what is this? There's a flank, and Saber might be compromised here. The immediate flash from Heng, trying to capture him with the 3 talent strike. Incoming Super Mega Death Throck, and that's the power of the full lethality. Jinx, he just destroys Saber off the map at 50% HP, and no Syndra means this Baron is ripe for the taking.
It's just going to be a trade of Baron for tower, unless, of course, we can get a great steal right here from Junhao. It would be so cool. He's done it before.
4,000, 3,000, 2,000. He's in!
He got it! Oh!
Junhao, savior for Ultra Prime! You said it at Game 2, Bloxer. We've got a series on our hands, and Junhao is delivering on that promise.
Oh my lord, look at the smile on Wako's face as well. He knows it. That was sick. And this has happened before. Junhao had 2 back-to-back steals. I believe it was in the Weibo game, to just about try to keep them in it. Weibo game number 3. You can't do this as OMG. You cannot allow him to just step up and nick it from right under your nose. That's exactly what ends up happening, and all of that momentum that OMG had for themselves stalls out. They've been struggling to take towers already, and now you don't get the Baron buff to try to play around. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. And meanwhile, on the flip side, Ultra Prime, they have a sudden new wind in their sails, man. They are feeling so damn good. The gold lead has been quite rough from the side of dealing with that as a deficit, but you have to remember, Starry is just one person on this team composition. You still have tools to lock them down. Flash and Cleanse are still available, but if you can use that win condition and focus in on saying, hey, if we get rid of Jinx, the rest of the team ain't shit. Like, I'm gonna keep it real. The rest of this team fight is so winnable from the side of Ultra Prime. And now that the Baron buff has been netted, it gives them a little bit more time to scale on up, let Wako catch up in items. Yeah, he's still going to be, you know, behind in overall gold, but he won't feel like cannon fodder.
This steal of the red buff feeling a little bit risky all of a sudden. Linfeng was stepping up, could potentially have tried to use that shockwave. Like we were highlighting earlier, the death cap has now been completed, so that is going to be a massive bonus if you can land it. Junhao going in right now is potentially going to get collapsed upon. Starry is in the area. Obviously, Camille, very fast, can run away pretty easily. And the more members you draw up towards this top side, the more time you're going to have to try to push in these waves elsewhere. The thing is, despite the fact that they were able to steal away the Baron, as cool as that was, Junhao and the rest of Ultra Prime don't really feel like they can do too much with it. I mean, you aren't winning your 1v1 as Jiang versus Hery. You never were going to be. The Scion is so tanky at this point. But that means that the Camille, who's the best split pusher you have, isn't really able to do too much. And nobody else is on the rest of the map either.
Jiang just making sure that he distances himself away from Heng and out of their grasp. This Baron buff push hasn't really netted that much. Yeah, it's like a few hundred gold, but the overall goal for Ultra Prime was just to deny it away from OMG and not give them the tool to close out the game. Because now, Ultra Prime can once again try their luck at netting Mountain Soul. Now, OMG, they're going to play for the wave first, and that puts Ultra Prime in a bit of a pickle. They have to push this wave back. They don't want to give up any standing gold and experience that is free for the taking, but it also means that they're going to have to re-fight for control in this river.
Well, big flank teleport. We've been talking about big flanks. This one is massive. Oh, if he can catch. Oh,
Heng
this
is
is perfect.
compromised. Wait a minute, Hexec ultimatum, and there's the Ash Arrow. It's gonna stop OMG from being able to play
dead.
without their jungler. This is big. Ultra Prime, is this enough to carry on forward? Here comes the teleport for Hery. They've lost RosieLove, but they haven't lost their jungler, and they just need to burst down this dragon. One Jung trying to heal up off of this Raptor camp, and that could expose Starry and Linfeng on this backline. They don't have Hexec ultimatum anymore.
Hery's
Saber's
so
in trouble.
massive.
That's a flash forward. Junhao tries to go in and save it. They haven't even gotten close to burning down this dragon. They've got to be careful about how they play. This is Shockwave pulls Junhao as he was trying to go back. Good kick right through the backline, but One Jung has taken out Starry, and now he can save this fight. Junhao, good flash over the right side of the wall. It's just Linfeng, nail Linfeng, and there's no more damage in the rest of this composition from OMG. Ultra Prime are playing it so damn well. They rip through it on Linfeng, tries to rip through one and saves it for now, but Hery is gone. The rest of Ultra Prime have saved the game, and this Mountain Soul is their prize to claim.
That team fight was a mess. Back and forth, back and forth. This game is ridiculous. This series is ridiculous. But once again, Ultra Prime just about going to be able to come out on top after just squeaking out a couple of victories. This flank was gorgeous. We've been talking about flanks all game. This is exactly the one that you're looking for from Jiang, one of the main players we were highlighting earlier today, and the fact that you managed to kill the jungler should be the right start. All of a sudden though, you lose RosieLove, and I thought at this point it was over for Ultra Prime because you're just getting chased down, and Hery is so massive, Starry does so much damage. But look right here at what Junhao is able to do. Is able to just sit on the backside of this fight, buy enough space, buy enough time for Jiang to go flying in. Boink. Nice pickup immediately. Once you've lost the Jinx, this fight is flipped on its head, and from then on, we've seen it. It's crazy the whole way through. At this point, you're still also kind of being taken down by the Drake. It doesn't deal that much damage, but it does still kind of hurt. It contributes to the fact that Wako ends up dying. And Hery just not quite strong enough in his zombie form. And now the gold has swung once again. I can't wait to see that gold graph. It's got to be a roller coaster.
Yeah, and you know what's the best part, Bloxer? Hang on. I think we're just going to have the roll right into the setup for the Baron. Junhao already scouting ahead into the bottom side of this river. RosieLove looking for a flank. Maybe if he can try and pincer onto Starry. Remember, no summoner spells onto Starry. He's taking up a lot of damage. Baron is secured by OMG. The Glacial Fissure knocks up Junhao. Gotta be careful and respect the damage out of this Jinx. But there's no summoner spells. If they can find a way to close the gap onto him, but Saber is caught! And that's the first reset for Starry, as they're going to try to use the movement speed to power on forward. But the rest of Ultra Prime make enough ground to get the hell on out of there. But now they have to deal with the Baron-empowered minions pouring in through the mid lane.
Yeah, that fight, once again, Ultra Prime, they just hadn't set themselves up to be able to walk into that one. We're just trying so hard to find a way in. They had a little bit of a flank from RosieLove, but nothing too big. And now, last stand potentially in their base. These champions shred towers.
Oh boy, Mountain Soul, how much can it save Ultra Prime's game here? RosieLove tries to buy some time. Junhao gets a lot of damage there, but Junhao gets blown up. There's the resets once again. And not even a Mountain Soul save, not even a Baron Steel save is enough to deny what OMG wanted to bring. A game 5. We're going to Silver Scrapes, ladies and gentlemen.
What did we say? Series on our hands. This one has been just mental, back and forth. That was such a crazy game. It felt like multiple times Ultra Prime were going to be able to just about squeak themselves back into a good spot, but a couple of mistakes in the mid-game cost them the lead they'd built for themselves early on. And then from that moment on, the composition was just stronger for OMG. Standard, front to back, hit what's in front of you, League of Legends gaming, and hey, sometimes it's just what you need.
That's one of those moments where you just gotta, like, lean the chair back and just decompress after what was, I mean, you called it an absolute roller coaster, back and forth, so mental. I love that word. My goodness, I can't find another way to describe what the state of my sanity is at the moment. Just witnessing the epic plays back and forth between the two teams. And we have to remind everyone, this is just for pride. You know, like, neither of these teams, unfortunately, has the pleasure of, you know, going on to the playoffs bracket. But, you know, it goes to show how much they are putting in to these last 2 games of their first split of the season, because they're not going to get the chance to play on this stage for a few more weeks after tonight. So, I mean, props to them for really, you know, putting everything on the line and just making us remember who these teams are as we prepare for the second split.
And neither of these teams is happy to give up an inch right here, constantly fighting for every last scrap that they could possibly on the map. You say it's for pride, and pride is a great motivator, and these players, they have a lot to prove as well. A lot of young players in this game. A lot of people who are just about 20 years old and so still have long careers ahead of them. They want to show that they deserve to still stick around, still be a part of the LPL. And I mean, I feel like there's been a lot of great looks right now, especially in this game on OMG. Specifically, we were talking about it. Hey, how much do we really like Lethality Jinx? Well, it was the perfect Lethality Jinx game. And if you are going to pull it out in its perfect game, Starry piloted it incredibly well.
Starry just put on an absolute clinic of a show, and we have to, you know, go backwards and think, man, this could have all been avoided had Ultra Prime given a little bit more respect to OMG on that top side fight, where I'm sure once we get into the highlights, and look at that gold graph, you called it. You know, it was cruising for Ultra Prime, and then, boop, at that 15-minute mark, the top lane play happens. OMG are riding high. They're, you know, starting to peak. And then the flip, the Baron steal, they're back. The Mountain Soul is secured. Unfortunately for Ultra Prime, it's not enough to really swing back against a super fed Jinx.
No, I mean, the amount of damage that Starry was able to do. You can see highest percentage of damage in the game by a significant margin as well. Not particularly surprising, but it was Heng and Linfeng who were able to really work so well together. Those two were able to lay down the law with the amount of damage. There were a couple shockwaves in that game, specifically shockwaves that were, you know, put into the backline by the Junhao, where all of a sudden, this fight that maybe wasn't going so well, well, you've grabbed everybody and you've done a metric ton of damage, and now the fight is so hard to try to actually play out for anybody on Ultra Prime.
Gosh, it really felt like a millennium passed. This game for Bloxer. Just watching these highlights is just reminding me how much really occurred, and